Available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop Ariapita Avenue Woodbrook and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
WESN.
Thank God it's Friday. Yep, the week is coming to an end. We still got to get through today, though. Don't forget that. So, as much as we may be feeling some level of relief and reprieve, well, we still have we got about 12 more hours to go, ladies and gentlemen. So hold strong. Now, good morning to you, Trinidad and Tobago, and thank you for joining us on AM Prime this morning. I say us because I'm joined by a special co-host, a colleague of mine, a face that may be familiar to viewers on WESN. Welcome, Naomi McNish. Good morning, Naomi, and good to see you again. Welcome as co-host of AM Prime.
Thank you so much, Kitan. Thank you. Morning, everyone.
Well, welcome to the early morning shift. So thanks for joining us this morning. Also joining us on the program is our first guest. Now, I mentioned, thank God, it's Friday, and we're all looking forward to the weekend. This may be a bittersweet Friday because it means that having to get up and go to the walls of Parliament begins once more from Monday. We welcome to the program the opposition member of Parliament for Tabakit and the Shadow Minister of Education, Ms. Anissa Haynes-Allen. Good morning and welcome to AM Prime. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Ms. Haynes-Allen, we thank you for joining us. The topic of conversation, of course, is the comments coming out by the Minister of Education this week. Give you some background, of course, you would be aware that throughout the July-August vacation, question marks were being raised in respect to the school prep program. We did not hear from the minister nor the minister in the ministry until the last week of the July-August vacation, in which she indicated that $20 million had been spent on the school repair program. Initially called it to be 18 million, but it rose to 20 million. As school opened this week, we have heard of a plethora of issues. In fact, the biggest perhaps coming from the Mount Hope Secondary School, and the minister stating, well, $5 billion is just not enough. $150 million for the school repair program isn't going to work. Ms. Haynes-Allen, this news is not entirely surprising, but does it reveal a lot more of our situation coming from a government minister?
So this conversation on school repairs, especially coming off of the July-August vacation, has been something that has plagued our society for time immemorial. But this particular Minister of Education would have raised in a budget debate the fact that there's aging school infrastructure, which has put an additional strain on the financial requests coming forward for school repairs. But my issue, the issue that I am facing, is that there is no possible way to circumnavigate the issue of infrastructure in schools. So if you know that there is aging infrastructure, and we know that we are utilizing these schools, and we know that children will be coming out in September, and we know that the infrastructure is not up to scratch, up to par, then why are we acting surprised in September? So the issue with Mount Hope, the issue with St. George's, the issue in Palmyra with the rats, these are things that would have been on the ministry's radar. The schools that we're hearing about, they've been on the ministry's radar. So it's a question of prioritization. It is a question of, if you are aware that the school is not fit for purpose, you have a duty, a responsibility to get it up and ready in time for the new school term. And this particular administration also has a unique space in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, because they've also been in charge while we've had a prolonged level of school closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And there was a period in time during the pandemic while schools remained online when the construction sector was open. So we could have done a bulk of this work during that school closure time when we were on online school. So, what we're seeing right now is a nation that is really fed up of excuses, exhausted by having repeat problems time and time again, and things that don't require any kind of novel solution. It's a simple matter of, if the roof is broken, fix it. If the staircase is broken, fix it. And if you need more money, request it, because it is necessary. You cannot take the chance of having children go into schools that are just not fit for purpose.
Now, in that regard as well, Minister, I'm curious to know, given what you said, though, and all fair points, but at this point in time, no doubt that TNT's economic situation is not the best, putting it very lightly. Is the Minister's comments unreasonable in any way? Should we be understanding of the position that she stated that the Ministry finds itself in, where most of the budgetary allocation is tied up in recurrent expenditure?
Right. So given that most of the budget is tied up in recurrent expenditure, and the interesting thing is that the Minister herself introduced this point. No one before the Minister spoke suggested that $5 billion was what was going to be used on school repairs. The public understands that you have salaries to pay, that there are significant other requests within that budget for that $5 billion. But annually, you still get about between $45 to $100 million on part of that budget for school repairs. So what we're asking the Minister to do is tell us where exactly the money you said was spent, because it can't be. It cannot be that we are unable to prioritize. So last year, the same time last year when we returned to Parliament, I asked a question: how much money was spent on urgent repairs, as well as how much money was spent on repairs that had been ticketed. So the way the school system works is, each school, the school administration will put online what they need fixed, and so they'll list it in order of priority. And so the ministry has, coming from each school, what is required to be fixed in their school and how urgent it is. Now, what we're seeing happening is that when problems are small, they are ignored until they become a massive issue and a more expensive issue. And so if we did things the proper way, and if we used our allocation properly when we got it, then we will not have to find multi-million-dollar issues at every school year. We could have fixed some of these things when they were $1,000 issues. And so that is the problem that I'm having with the ministry and the statements coming from the ministry, because it's not a matter of resources only. It is a matter of proper management, using the information you have, using the data you have, and fixing the problems when they arise. And so that you aren't always, they don't have to be multi-million-dollar solutions if you were doing the job correctly from the beginning.
Now, in that, okay, so you said no need for multi-million-dollar solutions from the very beginning. However, I'm curious to know, in that regard, the minister, let's use Mount Hope as an example. She said it's too expensive right now. It's going to cost $200 million if we look at a new school for Mount Hope. That can't happen. I mean, $150 million for the school repair program in its entirety for schools across Trinidad and Tobago. So if that is the case, and you're saying, well, we should use the budget allocation properly, one, what do you mean properly? I mean, how would you say that things should be done differently? or properly?
That's right. And when I say that, I mean an issue of priorities, right? So Mount Hope Secondary become, did not end up in this state overnight. It did not happen over the July-August vacation. It would have been an ongoing issue over many years. At some point in time, right, that issue could have been fixed for less than $200 million. Now we've gotten to the point where the PTA, the teachers are saying, we need a new school. Had the recurrent issues faced by the secondary school been fixed in a timely fashion, you would not be here. You would not be here at this point in time looking for $200 million. And so that's what I meant. But going forward now, accepting things as they are, and accepting that in various schools, and by and large, it is in the government schools, you have what we're facing is, this is the situation we're facing. Last budget for fiscal 2024, we were told that the ministry was going to introduce and adopt a school program. In that adopt a school program, they were asking corporate Trinidad and Tobago to take on a school, and they would benefit from tax incentives. So you'll get a reduction on your taxes in order to adopt a school and invest in, no doubt, included the physical infrastructure of the school. In this entire discourse, we've heard nothing about that program. We've heard nothing about the private-public partnerships that they were looking at. And so what I'm saying is, going forward, you've allowed issues to become $200 million problems when that was not the case. It didn't have to be that way. And it's happening across the board. In my own constituency, the Gasparillo Secondary School, we face things like rundown desks and chairs. We face things like no whiteboard. We had faced a problem with the roof that I raised last year that thankfully we had fixed within the early part of the first term in September 2023. But you can't have persons having to protest and having to come out to speak out for basic infrastructural changes. The ministry is aware of what is needed by each secondary school and each primary school and each early childhood education center. Being aware, you can now prioritize the issues. You know what are urgent issues, you know what can be solved in the medium term, and you know what can be solved in the long term. And then based on that, let the schools know these are the problems that we can solve, say this July, August. This is what can be done over the Christmas holidays. This is what can be done over the Easter holidays. This is what may be done during the school term. You may be inconvenienced slightly, but we're going to keep work going. And you see, if we have that constant communication and you are aware of what problems are being fixed, so that citizens can get a sense of value for money, you understand that if you hear $20 million has been spent, you can see $20 million worth of work. If we had that, we would be in a better position now. But what we're seeing is millions of dollars spent over 9 years, and still so many questions, more questions than answers, more problems than solutions. And that is where the frustration of citizens are coming from, because you're being told things are being fixed and you just can't see it.
So Ms. Haynes, I want to touch on these repairs that Mount Hope needs. I know you said that, there's nothing that can be done now. The school term has started. So these repairs will go into the school term, right? The way that it would impact the students, I wanted to touch on, points of how can this be mitigated? And, the repairs need to be done. They need to be done. So how can we mitigate it impacting the students during the school term?
Well, unfortunately now, I think we have to pick the lesser of two evils, which is that the repairs cannot, it's not that they can be ignored. So they'll have to go on while the school term is ongoing. And so again, just to use the Gasparillo Secondary School as an example, we had an issue where they had shut down one block, worked on that while students were accommodated on another school block, that sort of thing. And over the last few weeks, I've raised a correlation with the physical spaces that students are asked to occupy and what we're seeing with our examination results. And so, I appreciate and value your question about how this can be mitigated, because Mount Hope Secondary will have students who will face CSEC next year. And this ongoing work, plus the fact that they aren't able to get started with the schools at the same time, as well as the added burden of physically attending a space that is not fit for purpose. These things impact young persons, and it may also impact the exam results that we are seeing, because they're just not in a space that's conducive to success. And so all that we can do now, again, the ministry would be wise to looking at ways to allow for student success to take place despite the situation. So if it is looking at homework centers in the area, making sure students who require the additional help can get it, looking at making sure that student support services are available within the school, those things are equally important to then help bolster students to get them to the path that they need for success.
Well, the minister, said that she wanted to be very, very clear. She said the public must understand this, that the amount of money required for school repair is simply not available. And she went on to say, actually, that this has been the situation for some time in TNT, and an issue that ministers of education previously, her predecessors, have faced as well. But on that particular point, whilst TNT is supposed to be understanding, according to the minister, if we also look at other solutions, if physical spaces aren't available, is it time that the ministry looks at adopting, just as over the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a hybrid education system where students were being taught classes at home from devices? Is that something that we have to be considering as a permanent solution, because physical spaces simply aren't adequate enough to accommodate students?
Well, it's not that physical space is not adequate enough, It's that we cannot let our school infrastructure just get to a state where they are unusable. These have been investments. Trinidad and Tobago would have been investing in these buildings for years, decades at this point in time. And again, if I go back to my initial point on how do we prioritize our issues, we can get there. Trinidad and Tobago will be much more understanding if we have been seeing our value for money, because millions of dollars have already been spent. And so that if you can see, the minister could simply come to us and say, these are the secondary schools, these are the things we accomplished, this is how much money was spent. And you see, you get a sense of, you can see ongoing work, you can see progress, you can see, and so that you aren't only seeing the problems. But to come to the population and say, look, we just don't have enough money to keep these schools running and going, I think is irresponsible, and it's also simply not true, right? Now, do we have money that we can put, that every school will be perfect by the end of the school year? No. But is it that we have enough money that schools can be fit for purpose? Absolutely. And so it is a question of priorities, and it's a question of being accountable to the public, telling us where you spend the money that you spent thus far, and where you intend to spend money over the next school year, which coincides closely with the fiscal year, and what can we expect for our billion-dollar investments into the education sector over each fiscal period and then over a 5-year period. It really is not that complicated. The frustration comes when we are told millions are spent, we do not see it. And so even if you were looking at a hybrid system, it does not excuse the government from providing the basics. So now imagine we employ a hybrid system, Keita, and the fact is that if you're unable to manage things like a physical building, where as an issue pop up, you could fix it, how are they going to manage the infrastructure conducive for online learning over time? They'll just let that fall apart too, because it's not simply a resource problem, it's a management problem.
So I want to get your opinion on something in keeping with, what can we do or what can be done do you think that the PTAs should be encouraged to be a little more active in keeping or in running of these schools?
Yeah,
So like we see in the denominational schools.
yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? And I raised that with the Adopt a School program last year because one of the concerns I had was that the same schools will be adopted. Because what you find happening is there are schools where the PTA is very active, the Past People's Association is very active. And so those schools get a lot of investment into the spaces. So that, there are certain schools, if it is that they require a new desk for a classroom, they call on their Past People's Association, they call on their PTA, and they get that done. And then there are other schools who require the same type of assistance, but if it is that the alumni network is not the same, or that the PTA is not able to fundraise as effectively, we would know which schools those are, and they require the little additional help from the government. So yes, I always encourage community activism. I encourage these spaces where the PTA can be vocal, where the Past People's Association can be vocal, but it does not exempt the government from its responsibility and its duty to the children of Trinidad and Tobago.
Right. So where do we go now and what do we do from here?
Well, for me, I intend on asking in Parliament next week the questions that we all have in terms of a breakdown on what was spent and where it was spent, so that we have a kind of clearer idea on what we're dealing with. We also will be going into the budget for fiscal 2025. And I urge all citizens to pay very close attention, because outside of the major promises of the budget reading, which happens, and the debate, we also do a standing finance committee, which breaks down the details of our spending, or of the government spending over time. And it also challenges what they say was spent last year. And so I want to urge all citizens, right now we are all very interested in school repairs. And every year without fail, I ask the question in terms of how much was spent, how much you intend to spend. And I want citizens to continue to pay attention. Because you see, this type of activism where people are sending in the information, where they're sharing what's going on with the schools, we need that to continue. Because once any government understands that people are paying very close attention to the dollar and cents issues, they will have to respond accordingly. So going forward, we will be in a discussion by the end of September, early October, in terms of how much money goes into the education sector, where that money goes into the education sector, and what they intend to do over the next year. And I want to just urge all citizens to pay very close attention, because you are seeing the real world impact of our fiscal discussions. You're seeing when they say they'll spend money and they don't spend it, what happens.
Indeed. Well, Mrs. Haynes-Arlene, I want to thank you very much for joining me and Air Prime this morning, and we appreciate your time as always. I certainly look forward to the budget discussions and what is to come from that debate. So thank you very much, and all the very best to you.
All right, take care. Thank you so much for having me, and have an excellent weekend, guys.
You too. Take care. Mrs. Haynes-Arlene, the opposition member for Tabakeet, and also the Shadow Minister of Education. I think, Naomi, one of the things that we did not discuss in great extent that Mrs. Haynes-Arlene did point out at the end is that the Minister of Education's comment is also a sign of the bigger picture in respect to governance, and by extension the management of our economy. Certainly things have not been great, although if you do listen to the Minister of Finance at times, you would probably get the impression that everything is fine and dandy. But this is a long-term issue that isn't going to be repaired anytime soon. You brought up the example of $200 million from Monto. If $150 million was allocated for the entire school repair program, I get the impression this is something that isn't going to be repaired anytime soon.
No.
I don't think I don't think the minister's comments, as much as he was probably trying to get some level of sympathy from the public, I don't think that it is auguring too well. But ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on the program. And we will be welcoming our second guest in a bit. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me. How you would respond to me?
I would. The first question I'd ask is why.
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot have a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us this morning. I'm joined by Miss Naomi McNish, who, as I mentioned, you are familiar with her face. She is a news anchor, and she's also the producer of AM Prime. Well, one of the producers, actually, but she really does a lot. So we have such a good staff and a good camaraderie in WESN, because Joash Alexander and my old, of course, every morning is in studio ensuring that we go live. Well, let me not waste any more time in welcoming my second guest. The Trans-Tobago Registered Nurses Association met with the Minister of Finance earlier this week. I believe it was on Tuesday or Wednesday. And to say the least, we got two sides as to how the meeting went. The TTRNA they've expressed dissatisfaction. The minister, on the other hand, said it was very productive and geared towards solutions. Let's find out what is going on this morning. It's easier to get in touch with an association than a minister, so I welcome Mr. Eddie Stewart. Good morning, sir. Welcome back to AM Prime.
Pleasant morning to you. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Now, I know the TTRNA has been speaking about concerns for quite some time. Some of the concerns include the fact that nurses are still working on 2013 salaries. But surely that was just not the sole topic of the conversation when you met with the minister earlier this week. What transpired during this particular meeting, and how would you describe the outcome as compared to how the minister has put forward his outcome?
Well, firstly, the association would have met with the Minister of Health and the other officials of the regional health authorities. Really, 75% of the discussion was attempting to demonstrate to the ministry that we would have lost significant benefits that we had previously enjoyed as nursing and midwifery personnel were taken away from us over the last 9-10 years. And all we were really doing for 75% of the discussion is demonstrating that you ought to give it back to nursing and midwifery persons. So it wasn't new areas of concern, but it was existing benefits that other sectors of the healthcare industry and even the ministers themselves enjoy. So for instance, motor vehicle tax exemption is something nursing personnel used to enjoy. Those persons who are considered traveling officers used to enjoy when we were under the public service. And also when we came out of the public service up until 2015, and then it was removed from all healthcare workers, all RHA workers. However, doctors complained, and within 3 months, it was returned to doctors. Unfortunately, it still has not returned to nursing personnel, and this is not all nursing personnel. This is just a small subset, those persons who actually work in the field and have to visit clients in the field, those champions of the fighting NCDs, those nurses who have to go following a baby's birth and make sure the environment that baby is coming home into is adequate for the sustenance of that life. So those are the nursing personnel, those mental health officers who have to go out and treat with aggressive, mentally unstable patients in the community. They are required by their duty as a mental health officer and as a district health visitor and as a district nurse to have a vehicle. So the employer is saying you must have a vehicle to do this, but we will take away the benefit you used to enjoy by motor vehicle tax exemption and take it away from you. Mind you, every single minister in the government has this facility. Every single doctor in the community, not that doctor visit anyone. The doctors don't visit anyone in the community. It is the nursing personnel. So for the life of us, we have been fighting to get back this benefit for nursing personnel. And then a number of other...
I just want to interject on that particular point before you continue. Is this was that benefit part of the original remuneration package when nurses would have signed their contracts? And also, is this an issue that really, I know that the association has mentioned that they plan action in the form of protest. Is this really something to be protesting on?
Yes, so it's a litany of issues. It's not one thing we will be highlighting, which our membership is demanding we take action on, because these things really have been going on for far too long. And I want to reiterate, it's not new things, it's stuff that was existing. So what transpired during health sector reform, when nurses came over from the Ministry of Health to the RHAs, as the RHAs is now the new service delivery or organs of the state. All of the terms and conditions of employment also were supposed to come over, and they did for a while, until slowly, one by one, upon the advice, so-called advice of the CPO, began to say, look, these are only for public sector workers, and nursing personnel are no longer public sector workers. We are contract workers under the state, and you need to negotiate those things with the CO. Mind you, this constantly is a flip-flop. When it suits the government or suits the state, they will identify us as public sector workers. When it does not suit them, they will identify us as contract workers under a particular RHA. This particular situation indicates that, hey, you all are contract workers, you're all not entitled to what public sector workers get. So we don't get health insurance, we don't get loans from the state, we don't get this motor vehicle tax exemption, and it's a litany of issues. Some of other issues, for instance, nursing personnel used to be permanent, just like police, fire, prisons, every other, teachers. All of these persons are permanently employed. Nursing personnel are temporarily employed, and not even temporarily employed with a contract, but temporarily employed with some makeshift type of arrangement where you are denied pension payments and denied gratuity payments. So what is the nurse to do when they retire? They actually have to go destitute because they would not benefit from the mandatory pension plan set up by the RHAs. It's mandatory. So all other, and this is again a subset, this is something that some of the RHAs created. It started off in NCRHA. We had to take NCRHA to court eventually winning that case, and NCRHA has now started making nursing personnel permanent within the NCRHA, but no, another RHA like the Northwest Regional Health Authority is finding it too expensive to make nursing personnel permanent, and all other healthcare workers, because they can't just do it to nursing personnel. And they're saying $26 million is way too much for job security for nursing personnel. They can't find that money. Mind you, this is the same state organization and the same operating from the same state where they have found $1 billion to build Sandy Grande Hospital, $1 billion to build Point Fortin Hospital, $1 billion to build Arima Hospital, and in excess of $1 billion to build the Hoover Hospital. So the state can find $4 billion to fund the building of these 4 major hospitals in Trinidad and one new one in Tobago, Roxborough, and cannot find $26 million to return the benefit that they took away. It's a type of Robin Hood mentality, dyslexic Robin Hood mentality, where you take from the poor to ensure big business benefit by these underutilized hospitals throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Every single one of those new hospitals are underutilized. In fact, the Roxborough Hospital is really a health center. It's actually a health center. No service beyond health center services can actually be undertaken at that particular facility. It has no purpose other than a district health facility. You can't do any major surgeries there, nothing of the sort. Yeah.
Following the meeting with the minister, in your opinion, do you think that led to any concrete solutions in the near future?
Well, it was more of a, how to say, we are not fully confident. We are thankful for what was discussed, being given the opportunity. But to be honest, we are not really that confident. It is more normal lingo that ministers would use. You know, we will put in policies in place and whatnot, but no hard commitments were given, unfortunately, despite our attempts to pin down the ministers, something simple as legislation, which would not cost the government a thing. They didn't even want to commit to legislation, amendments to 2 particular bills. One to come, which is the Health Sector Accreditation Authority Bill, a bill that was already created, already worked on by past ministers of health. Actually, it was the very PNM government under Colin Imbert, when he was Minister of Health, started the whole process in terms of health sector accreditation, followed up by Dr. Fuad Khan. And when he last laid the bill in Parliament in 2013, unfortunately, since then, it has gone dormant. Another bill we are trying to improve is the Nursing Personnel Act. And unfortunately, they're saying that too would take too long, and the government is already committed to certain pieces of legislation. It's one of our bugbears. We call ourselves a democracy, but how can citizens influence the legislation that has to come out? The government has already decided what is important to them. What is important to us, the citizens, is to take second precedence. Yeah.
Mr. Stewart, can you elaborate on the specific areas affected with regard to the shortage of special trained nurses right now?
Well, there are so many issues in Trinidad right now. I shudder to think what will happen in about 2-3 years from now, when more and more of those nurses continue to leave our shores and more continue to retire. Currently, as we speak, we have no school training specialist nursing personnel in Trinidad and Tobago. None. The school that used to do it was the Ministry of Education. The very association admittedly had to take the Ministry of Education to court because it was operating illegally. It was not a registered school under the Accreditation Council of Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, a lot of deficiencies were seen with that school. They were operating upstairs at Mall on Frederick Street. They were operating in Palms Club in San Fernando, in really unsuitable places for training. And it was actually against WHO standards. It was against ICN, International Council of Nursing standards. The government was breaching their own commitment given to CARICOM that all nursing and midwifery personnel would be trained in registered accredited schools, and the minimum entry requirement into nursing would be a degree. So the government was breaking that, and we would have taken that to court. The court agreed with us and filed an injunction against the school. And this is after 8 years of lobbying the ministry to carry over those programs to the other 3 nursing schools, UWI, USC, and COSTAT. So it took a court action, and because of now it is being done in haste, the COSTAT is unable to start operating those specialty nursing programs. So now we are already short in terms of number of nursing personnel now, and we are further compromised that we don't have specialist nursing personnel being trained. And this is really specialist trained nursing personnel. So we will have a situation where our ICUs, our dialysis, our accident and emergency trauma trained nurses, all of these categories, subspecialties, will be in serious problems going forward. And I envision the ministry running to Cuba again, trying to source nursing personnel to fill these vacancies that we have, which is really unfortunate because the Cuban nurses come at a cost to Trinidad and Tobago in terms of the housing allowance for Cuban nurses. They have to pay them $3,000 for them to come to Trinidad, in addition to the nursing salary. Mind you, the housing allowance for TNT nurses is $100, but for the Cuban nurses, it's $3,000. We have no issue with paying nurses their just due who come from foreign lands. It's unfortunate the government cannot see the value in our own nurses, and therefore that's why they continue to go abroad. Yeah.
So, Mr. Stewart, then, what you're describing to me is that the health sector, to a certain extent, because if I'm speaking to the Nurses Association now, and I've spoken to doctors within the public healthcare system, senior doctors, I get the impression that the healthcare system is on life support. Would you say that it's quite possibly on the verge of collapse if it is that we are not getting the nurses that are necessary to fill these positions? The current STEM nurses are actually being overworked because they have to fill other areas, other gaps. Is it quite possible that you would say, or are you suggesting that the health sector is collapsing?
You see, the issue with saying it's collapsing or collapse, the health sector would always continue operating. That's the issue. So there would never be a point where the health system stops. Even the health system is considered an essential service under law in Trinidad and Tobago. It's an essential service, but I would proffer it's the most essential service of all essential services. And one only has to look at what is going on in Gaza, in the midst of a war where all other institutions have shut down. The health facility, health services must continue. It must continue. And this is, so one would want to believe a government understanding there's never a time where the health system cannot operate, would do everything in their power to ensure it operates well. And that's the issue we are having. What we are seeing, it's a constant erosion of the quality of care. You would have sporadic instances where the care would be acceptable, but then we have far too often where the care is constantly being whittled down, and that is our issue. So it will never collapse, that we will never have a health system. We'll have it, yes, but the quality continues to fall. Besides the shortage of in excess of 2,000 nursing personnel, besides that we cannot, there's the Minister of Health or any other RHA CEO can never tell you any of those major hospitals that we built and have to pay for in excess of 30 years, because all of them are on loans. None of them could tell you any one of them are operating at 75% capacity, far less for 100, because we don't have the human resource to fill those hospitals. Every single health sector worker would tell you now, we are struggling to get consumables to operate these health facilities. Some simple things like syringes, the varying sizes of gloves. If your hand is too big, you cannot find a glove in the health facility. Needles, we are restricting the number of needles we have access to. So when you find you are getting an injection and you find, but why are you using this big needle? Because we don't have a smaller bore needle. It's simple things like that we're beginning to see creeping up. And when you ask hospital administration, they're saying, hey, this particular supplier is no longer supplying because the ministry or the RHA hasn't paid their bills, so they are not supplying these consumables. This particular drug is not in the pharmacy because the suppliers hasn't been paid or whatnot. And it's continuously, and we're seeing it more and more and more. And the quality of care, and unfortunately, because the patient interacts with the nurse more often than not than any other service provider, then the backlash comes at the nurses and they blame the nurses for the poor quality of care. So that's a major issue we have also.
Stuart, for the sake of time, I'm just expediting the conversation a bit because you made a serious allegation. This is going to one newspaper report where you're alleging that government has not made payments to the National Insurance Board on behalf of some of your members at the TTRNA. Is this an issue that was also raised with the Minister of Health? The minister is actually saying a lot of what was discussed does not fall under the purview of the Ministry of Health. But this particular issue, National Insurance Board payments, is this something that you were able to raise and seek some sort of resolution on?
No, this wasn't raised with the minister. This meeting was on Tuesday morning, and actually we are a part of the Joint Trade Union movement. And in that JTA meeting, which was in the evening, a number of unions actually met with some of the officials of NIB, highlighting their concerns to the NIB. Every time we have started a practice informing our members, hear what? 2 years before you retire, because we realize it takes so long for NIB payments and pension payments to kick in, and members, our members and other union members have to really go destitute for 2, 3, 4 years before NIB payments and other payments kick in. We have started telling members, hey, go to NIB and find out if there's any outstanding payments, make sure payments are up to date. And 100% of the time, it is incorrect. 100% of the time. And the board is saying, hear what? We are missing payments for this whole year of 2019, whole year of 2022, whole years are missing. And that person now has to rectify that, go back and find pay slips to show that your money came out of your salary. Because remember, all of these things are contributory. It is not totally on the state. We contribute to NIS payments. We contribute to our pension payments within the RHA. So when they do that and they get that statement, they have to run for the next 2 years to try to put their house in order. Otherwise, when they retire, they would be left destitute. Yeah. So that is something the actual Joint Trade Union movement is going to be holding a press conference about, specifically to deal with coming this week, next week coming, and they will be dealing with that frontally.
Mr. Stott, you mentioned legislative action, which may not be feasible in this period. So for the changes, sorry.
No, I think, sorry, we had a drop in connection there for a moment. But I think if I will on Naomi's behalf, sorry about that drop in connection. But I think that she was speaking to the fact that some of the legislative action may not necessarily happen anytime soon for whatever reason, whether it's not feasible, whether it's not on the government's legislative agenda. But if that is the case, I mean, what is next for the TTRNA? How do you plan to advocate further on these particular issues or your immediate priorities if the solution which was put forward is the legislative agenda isn't necessarily going to happen?
Well, that's the role of the union. We have to do whatever it takes to bring our issues, to make it priority, to make it be considered as equally as important as removing 3 ships from our coat of arms and replacing it with something else. That is our job. We have to find creative means to do that overnight. So for instance, overnight with the unfortunate passing of the divers in South when they were in the tunnel, the Prime Minister said he's going to set up a committee to look at it. I think the opposition had some issue with one of the chairmen of it, and overnight the Prime Minister implemented, which we now know costed the country $100 million commission of inquiry. So how is it, what would have motivated the Prime Minister to flip so easy and cost the country $100 million to create this commission of inquiry? What is it that could turn a decision so quickly on a dime and cost $100 million, and then we cannot pay nursing personnel, contribute to our pension plan for nursing personnel for less than 26 million? What is it? So we have to find whatever is that trigger point. And yes, we are essential service. Yes, if we take any type of action, it will cause significant disruption to health services, but we have to find that trigger point, and that is what we are discussing amongst ourselves and our members right now, to find something that can elevate our issues to being high priority as opposed to low down on the totem scale. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Stewart, I want to thank you very much for joining Naomi, and I think we have to end the conversation here. Naomi, unfortunately, actually, a connection has just come back up, but this is where the interview has to end. So thank you very much, sir, for being with us this morning, and thank you for joining us on the conversation. We await to see what happens any further. Shortly, we will be reaching out to the minister for his thoughts as well, but at this point, let's wait to see what happens. Budget is right around the corner. You never know. You maybe get a happy surprise. So,
thanks for having me. Pleasant good day.
All the best. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on the program. When we return, Naomi and I get into one last discussion. Actually, it's a bit of a fun discussion. Naomi, I'm sure that you're looking forward to that discussion.
I am, definitely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country, and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
you ever had a family game, right? Or you ever just went on a good line and it turned into a good game, right? And it's happened to many of us many a times. If that hasn't happened to you, I'm sorry, you're living under a rock. Because really, ladies and gentlemen, the one thing that we Trinis have in common, we love to lime, we love to eat, we love to party, and we like games, sitting down playing all fours. And recently, in recent times, I've seen a lot more games being created by Trinis. I've had the privilege of playing a few, but there's one that I haven't had the opportunity to play as yet. And I thought, well, you know what? Before I even purchase the game, why not speak to the judge myself and find out why is it that this is a game for me, for my friends, and for my family? Have you ever heard of Awin? And we ain't talking about the lotto, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome to the program the creator, the developer, the mastermind behind the game Awin, Mr. Andre James. Good morning, Mr. James. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for being with us, Mr. James. So tell me a bit more about the game Awin. I mean, the title is really interesting. You get very excited when you hear something. You know, we all like to win something. But what is the game actually based on? What is the concept of the game?
Okay, so Awin is based on a game called Loteria. Loteria dates back actually to, you know, the late 1700s for the Italian upper class, and they took it with them to Mexico. And, you know, it's the interesting parallel of it is kind of like when they took it to Mexico, when the general population saw them playing it, they took it on board. And it became this game of the masses. And I found that to be really intriguing, kind of like the way our carnival came from looking at the nobles and what they did and doing an emulation of it. So Loteria is essentially like bingo, but instead of using numbers, it uses symbols or elements based on our culture, Awin specifically is based on Trini culture.
Okay, well, okay, so there is inspiration behind it, of course, Loteria, which, by the way, I have to tell you, I never heard of before. I don't mean to sound terrible on national television, so I really genuinely never heard of it before. But you said it has a Trini twist to it. It involves Trini culture. Can you tell me a bit more as to exactly how you brought the Trini to this game?
Okay. Well, it's interesting. You haven't heard about it. Prior to me even making this game, I never heard about Loteria until I was watching TV with my wife. And it was, you know, they were talking about it in the show. And I was like, what is this game? So I looked it up. And when I started creating it, the Trini twist is since this is a cultural game in Mexico, you found things like, you know, having elements like the watermelon or the vagabond. So the Trini twist is obviously taking things from our culture and inserting it into the game. So like I said, it's a bingo game, but instead of using numbers, it's using elements. So you'll find things like potong or chow or lime. So instead of, again, waiting for these numbered calls, your caller will be calling out things like those numbers, and you'll be seeing things from our everyday life in Trinidad. So it's not just about carnival or soca. It's, you know, simple everyday things like rubber slippers or chula or coal pot. And, you know, the thrill of it, of course, is winning. And what do you want to do when you win? Say, I win. And that's pretty much the game.
Oh, Naomi. Naomi's connection. Naomi, you didn't win there. You didn't.
I wanted to get into, I was saying it sounds fun and exciting, and to see a lot of the things that represent our culture. But with everything great, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of difficulty, or maybe you would have run into some difficulty. So what were some of the challenges that you would have faced while developing Awin, and how were you able to overcome it, deal with it, fix it?
I think, oddly enough, the development was relatively smooth. It's really doing a lot of the research to find out about the things that I wanted to feature, and then, you know, I had to create these riddles. So I had to do the research into some of these elements. sadly, I felt like the hardest part of bringing it into production is working with trainees. Sometimes our work ethic could be a little tough to work with, and that tended to be the thing that I was running into. I felt like I was chasing people to get, not even to get them on board, just to get them to do the prints or to do whatever job they signed up for. So essentially what I ended up doing was creating my own platform. So instead of trying to go to stores or trying to ask someone to carry it in their store, I ended up creating my own website, my own online platform, and I handle sales and fulfill sales directly.
It's a very serious issue that you just raised there. It is a very serious issue. So you would forgive me, but I'm glad that at that point my microphone was on mute, because I couldn't help but laugh, because I'm thinking to myself, this is a game with a Trini twist. He's incorporated elements of our culture. He put a rubber slippers and a pot on and a tattoo on these cards, and I'm thinking he should have put a Trini worker as well.
Yeah, boy, some comments.
Some comment, but I'm glad that you were able to navigate around it, because it certainly helped you as well, and you certainly evolved to meet the situation. But you also mentioned riddles. What are some of the riddles? I don't know if you're willing to share any of that this morning. So sure. It's a possibility we could try and solve a riddle on here.
Okay. Let me get one of those cards for you. So for example, if I tell you this breed gets its name from a diet of table scraps.
Wait, what?
This breed of dog gets its name, from a diet of table scraps.
Maybe you could get.
There you go.
Potter. Oh yeah, I am thinking Potter. Okay, cool.
All right. Let me give you another one. This sour fruit is also a gathering of friends.
A lime.
There you go.
Right,
one more.
We're 1 for 1 here, Julian. I need to get one to break this.
Salt, pepper, shadow benny, garlic, and fruit.
Cow.
Oh,
yes.
Who said it first?
I think Naomi said it first. I think she might have beat you to the punch there. So that's the thing. When you hear a riddle, you take a chip and you mark it on your table. And that brings the interesting part of the game. So it's not just, you can't say, well, I could call chow, I could call poetry, but the fun of it is those riddles and trying to get those riddles in that instant and mark it before the call goes on to the next one. This is a game that's targeted to all ages, so the difficulty level can change. So if you're playing with young kids, you can use the numbers, and that gets them familiar with the numbers, it gets them familiar with the imagery and the words of the game. As they get a little older, you can call out the actual word, or for that, fun twist, start using the riddles and trying to catch those riddles, mark, catch your pattern, shout a win, and enjoy yourself.
How long did this game take you to develop completely?
About 3 years. I started during COVID, when everybody was on that board game craze, and it was a combination of, I didn't set out to create a board game. I was actually just drawing, and it was an exercise for me to just draw every day, because it was something I actually don't like doing, despite being a creative person. But again, like I said, when I was watching TV with my wife and this game came up, I was like, oh my God, what is this thing? And again, the interest was the things that I was drawing were what people will call mundane, like slippers, because I was just sitting doodling. And over time, I just started focusing a little bit more on the content, and instead of just doodling everything, I got very specific to looking at things around me in Trini culture. And it took over 3 years to get, the drawings, the illustrations, the colors, the packaging designed. And as a one-man army, again, it took a while, but I really took my time to do something that I feel like I could be proud of and Trinis could be proud of.
Mr. James, I remember there's a Bacchanal time and Mr. Wolf card in the game. Can you tell us what is that? What is that?
All right. That is the last part of the Trini twist, because we like our Bacchanal. So, like I said, in the game, you can call cards either by their numbers, their names, or the riddles. And each round, whoever is calling gets to pick. So I'll say, you know what, this round I'm calling by name. And in that deck of cards, there's this Mr. Wolf card. When you get that card, it triggers Bacchanal time. And what that means is the caller can now switch to any of the patterns they want. So they can call by number, they can call by name, they can call by riddle. So again, it adds this extra level of almost chaos and Bacchanal to the gameplay. Because now you have to be aware and be looking not just for the riddle, but the name or the number. And again, keeping up with the pace. Because if you miss the call, you're missing your chance to win.
This is like I don't know. I feel like it sounds like a very fun family game, but it also sounds like there's going to be some more involved. You know, because I'm still kind of reeling from the fact that he gave me that last one. Well, I thought, but I think even if people never heard of, just correct me on the pronunciation. It's Loteria, right?
Loteria, yes. It is a Spanish word, yes.
So then if people never, but they will still have a lot of fun because people know bingo, but then people who play we was like, well, this is marking my mark.
Exactly.
You know, it's marking my mark. So have you, in the trial and testing of this game, I mean, what were the responses that you received?
That was exactly it. Of course, like, you know, you and I, we never heard about the game before. So I'm not surprised that no one has heard about Loteria before. But the minute they start playing, the familiarity of every other game that's similar to it. So it has a component of trivia. It has a component of bingo. It has a component of playway. So that familiarity brings people in. And it connects to people generationally. Because, of course, you know, you'll find the older masses love their playway. So, you know, that connection to marking a mark brings that into your home on a table game, and you're not losing money over it. So yes, it is that familiarity, and all the games it tends to connect to and bring our culture into, allows people to connect to it very easily despite never hearing about it before or playing it before. So it's an easy pickup.
Are the symbols on these cards, right? Are they your drawings, or did you get these? They're yours. Okay.
Yes. Everything about this game is me, and even in that sense, there's a certain amount of, I would say, vulnerability, because, you know, these drawings that, like I said, I don't like drawing. It's not something I enjoy, but it was a challenge to me to do and get better. So after that, it just became this thing of, okay, what else can you do? You know, can you do the artwork? Can you do the layout? Can you do the packaging? So the entire design, even the website, it's all by me over time, just trying to not only hone my skills in different areas, but again, put something out that I could be proud of and other people as a culture could be proud of.
I will tell you that, I mean, not only has this, not only have you brought some sense of joy to people and you bring people together when they play this game, but it really sounds like this game has done a lot for you as well, Mr. James. It really sounds as though this has shown you your true potential. You've harnessed that potential quite brilliantly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
But I will also tell you that you probably, if these are your sketches, your drawings, you've drawn probably what is the nicest looking bush bath anyone. I was looking at one drew a very elegant, nice bush bath. You know, this is a spa, but so in bringing people and connecting them together, you've incorporated three elements. What do you want people to truly experience at the end of the day when playing this game?
An appreciation of the everyday. I think sometimes we can get caught up in, you know, the expensive and the extravagant and not appreciate, especially in our culture and in the West Indian culture, there are things that we go past and deal with every day, from the foods to just the words. The words themselves could be magical. So it's almost in seeing that manifested in a game, allows people to have a greater appreciation, I hope, for the culture of seeing, hey, look, that looked exactly like my slippers, or that that look like my potong, that kind of thing. So that for me is what I would like people to take away is, yeah, in Trinidad we have a lot to complain about, a lot to gripe about, but there are a lot of things that are beautiful that we should appreciate and value.
Nice. Mr. James, you would have mentioned a Win Music Edition and potential versions of the game for other Caribbean countries. Can you tell us a little bit more of these upcoming projects? How soon can we expect?
How soon is a difficult one because it's always about taking my time to get something that I'm happy with, and however long it takes, it takes. But the music edition is something I've already started on. So it starts with compiling this list of things that I have to draw, and then heading into the research of the imagery and so on. So the game edition, I would say, is more imminent, but I still can't tell you exactly when. As far as the other countries go, that is something I would love to do. My parents are Vinci, so even from that, it would mean just doing a Vinci edition, for example, means exploring that culture a little bit more. And it's even though they were because they're both past, I don't know much about it. So even for every culture I would have to create this for, it means it's a new culture I'll have to dive into and start learning from the people and from their culture. What is the things that you appreciate about the everyday Vinci life or the everyday Bayesian life? So that's kind of where it's going. So, who knows when, but soon enough.
Well, first we've got to play this game. I know you mentioned that you designed and created your own websites. I mean, as I said, it's amazing how frustration leads to innovation. But in that sense, Mr. James, where can people find out more? Where can they purchase this game?
Okay, so you can purchase the game on the website at www.awinboardgame.com. Or you can also find us on social media at awinboardgame. So yeah, check out the website and see, as I said, sales are handled directly. Put in your order and you can get it within a couple of days.
Excellent. So I think, Naomi, we're going to have to try and get this for the office.
Yeah.
I will be happy to send you guys one for sure.
Believe me, Mr. James, if you know our colleagues and co-workers, as I said, it's going to be war.
I mean, so far, Keaton, the 3 riddles we got, I won. So I think I can safely say I'm a pro at this.
I feel like, you might be the wesn winner for.
Yep.
Well, Mr. James, I think this will be an interview, Naomi, I will give you that win this morning because I was very slow to get put on. So I'm curious to know the other hurdles. Bush bath, I'm looking at Sutunya. Send the game, Mr. James, and we're going to play it, and we definitely are going to send you. In fact, you should probably come play it with us.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because one thing I forgot to tell you. One thing. When you get that Mr. Wolf card, what it says back in all time, you better give your best howl. Your best howl. That's the trigger.
Naomi, Naomi, go on, Naomi, give your best howl.
It's too good for TV.
Mr. James, thank you very much for joining us this morning on AM Prime. But congratulations. I mean, I'll tell you, the game sounds very fun. It's incredibly fun. Obviously, as I said, it's going to lead to good, healthy competition. I love how you incorporated a Trini Twister, a game that is centuries old. But apart from that, I have to tell you, it's refreshing to learn how really you've been able to meet and match your true potential, because I'm sure there's a lot more to come from you.
Yes, thank you very much, and thanks for having me on the show again. Thank you so much.
All the very best to you. We look forward to playing that game very soon. Come pass today.
Will do. Pass in now.
All right, James,
All right.
well, take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we always speak about supporting local. You can't get more local than this. I mean, the cards, if you get the opportunity, go online, and if you get the opportunity, you all have time. Come on, you all have time. I know you all have time. Go online and check out the game, purchase it, and have some fun. Because the pandemic is over, that doesn't mean that the board game mania ends. So go and get the game, play it in the office with your friends, with your family, or play it with your neighbor. Become friends with them, because we need a little bit more of that. Naomi, yes, you win this morning. I can't say I win. I can't say that I did. You did. However, the winner actually gets to give their best wolf howl. You know, could you are you able to do that?
Keaton, you're asking too much of me right now. Too much.
Naomi, I think this thing, you know. All right, no worries at all. We'll play the game later on. Naomi, that's it. That's it for AM Prime. It's Friday. What's the plans for the day ahead and for the weekend ahead?
We'll see how it goes. Can't say any plans right now, but head into the office and start the day. It was a pleasure spending the morning with all of you.
It certainly was indeed. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my producer telling me, Keaton, it's not over yet. You still have a lot of to do, so I better take the hints. And she's said it very diplomatically and politely on national television as well. So I think I have no choice but to listen. Anyway, Naomi, thank you very much for being with us this morning. Thank you for your work and your efforts in producing AM Prime, but also for co-hosting the program this morning. We look forward to the next one. And of course, to the rest of our team at WESN Content Capital, to Josh Alexander, who has been with us since inception, since the very beginning, and he is also been handling the morning shift for the last month or so. That comes to an end because Ryan Gomez-Burke joins us again on Monday. Josh Alexander, we thank you very much. It really has been all your hard work and effort. Thank you very much. We will get you a package of Hongwing coffee. We can promise you that. And of course, to Milewood, who has always held on the fort and has always done his part. Silent but deadly when he's ready. Believe me, silent but deadly when he's ready. Milewood, thanks a lot as well. Ladies and gentlemen, do have a good day ahead. Have a safe one, a productive one. Enjoy the weekend. And I'm reminding you, today is a good day to have a good day and a great weekend. We'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
And of course, what you can expect is that the far right will use that power as much as they can. At any point, they can pull the trigger, meaning that they will do it when they find it convenient, as close, I guess, as possible to the next presidential election.
But does that feel like that this national rally, the Rassemblement National, could be sort of holding the government hostage to set the agenda, to dictate policy, to get certain people on board the cabinet?
Well, definitely. This is something that has happened everywhere in Europe. You had other governments, minority governments with the far right. The far right used that to get maximum leverage. At the same point, they show that they are reasonable people. Look, they are not blocking the government. And you know, this is important. The left and the center left and the far left, they could not agree on someone. The prime minister today could be Bernard Cazeneuve, so a center-left prime minister. It did not happen because they could not agree. The far right is showing we are reasonable, we can do this. But at the same time, they will not be accountable for anything that happened in the government. So they are really in the best of both worlds for them, and they can choose as they like what will happen in government.
All right, Professor, thank you very much. Professor Renaud Foucard speaking to us there. Moments ago, the U.S. announced $250 million in new security assistance for Ukraine. This at an aid meeting at Germany's Ramstein Air Base, where Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky made a rare in-the-flesh appearance. It comes at a pivotal moment in the war against Russia. Ukraine recently began its first offensive operations, all while facing a significant threat in its Donbass region. Well, it's Friday, the day before the closing ceremony of the Paralympic Games. A lot is on the agenda today. There's athletics, there's canoeing, there's equestrian events, and more. On Thursday, there were also a number of medaling events. Our sports editor, James Messina, has a roundup of Thursday's action.
Well, it is nothing less than a historic night in Paralympic blind football. For the first ever time, Argentina have managed to beat Brazil, beating Brazil at their own game, a game that they have dominated ever since it was introduced to the Paralympics. A very tight match, 0-0 at full time, until it then went all the way to penalties. Sudden death in the penalties, and it was Ricardinho, the four-time gold medalist with Brazil, who ended up hitting that left post to hand the win to Argentina. Argentina then who beat Brazil. Brazil, the team, the country that invented blind football and have won every single edition ever since it was introduced to the Paralympics back in Athens in 2004. Brazil unbeaten for 20 years until tonight here in Paris. And Argentina will be heading over then to the final, where they'll be meeting the home side, France. France, who managed just about to beat Colombia, also in a tense game. It was 1-0, a goal that Virou managed to find in the 26th minute to send the home side then into the final. France against Argentina in a blind football final. Well, it sounds very much like a rematch also of the football final over in Qatar. All of that will be happening then in front of the Eiffel Tower. It'll be taking place on Saturday.
It's a rape trial that has shocked France while making headlines across the world. Dominique Pellicot has admitted to recruiting dozens of strangers online to rape his wife after drugging her with sleeping pills. Investigators have counted some 200 instances of rape, with more than 70 alleged abusers over almost a decade. His wife, Gisèle Pellicot, waiving her right to be anonymous in the hope it might help spare other women from similar ordeals. I'm joined now by Annette Young, the host of the 51%, France 24's Women's Show. Hello to you, Annette. Now, when we're looking at this case, it's highlighting the issue of drug-facilitated sexual assault, and that's something that might not be as widely known as it should be.
Indeed, and there are so many levels of horror to this case. Well, I don't know really where to begin. Police say between 2011 and 2020, Dominique Pellicot crushed sleeping tablets and anti-anxiety medication into his wife's evening meal and her drink at their home in Mazan in Provence. He would then enlist men to rape and sexually abuse her, contacting them via an online forum chat room where members discussed preferences for non-consenting partners. That online chat room has since been closed down by the courts. There are now so many men on trial, Will, that the court had to build a second glass box in the courtroom for those in custody. They include firemen, soldiers, truck drivers, a journalist, an IT consultant. They range in age from 26 to 74, many of them actually in stable relationships with children. Now, as you just mentioned, among the many issues that this horrific case raises is the issue of drug-facilitated sexual assaults, or drugging someone without their consent for criminal purposes. According to the French Agency for the Safety of Medicines, 41% of the abusers who carry out such a crime are known to the victim. This term, chemical submission, doesn't as yet exist in French criminal law, but it has been punishable via other laws since 2018 by 5 years in prison and €75,000 fine.
And the wife, she waived her right to anonymity. Why did she do that?
She did it so that, as she says, no woman, and I'm quoting her, should suffer from being drugged and victimised. She wanted the blame to be placed on those accused of raping her as opposed to herself. It's a very brave and courageous move, because what's very unusual about this case, among all the other things that we've just been talking about, is the open reverence given to the victim. Now, as we see so often in the case of rape trials, the reputation of the victim is effectively dragged through the courts. You know, that somehow she was to blame by what she was wearing or the way in which she spoke or behaved. But in this case, where the defendant is openly admitting to these horrific crimes, where you've got filmed evidence of the victim being drugged, nobody can say otherwise. And so the focus, quite rightly now, is on the men who are accused of raping Giselle. Scores of them in this case were also unwittingly filmed by the husband during the act. Many have pleaded not guilty. Some say they were tricked for having sex with a drugged woman, lured by her husband for a supposed playful three-way encounter, and they were told that she was pretending to be asleep because she was shy. So I would argue, may this case result in a legal change in the way we view consent, also in the way that we begin to respect or treat victims with the respect that they deserve.
And this is a case that, Annette, I'm sure you'll continue to follow, as will I. You also discuss other elements in today's show. You're looking at women in the world of advertising. Tell us more about that segment.
This is something we took a look at because of the Geraghty Awards, which is an all-female-led jury, has announced their winners this week, and we had on set one of the Paris jury members to talk about the status of women in advertising. It's very important because, as you can imagine, advertising is responsible for basically reinforcing images that we have of women in society. I spoke to the Paris jury member, herself a creative copywriter, and what needs to be done to improve the situation for women working in the industry. Let's take a listen.
Well, I think on one hand, within the industry, one thing that we need to do is we need to shine a spotlight on female advertisers, on women who are actually in leading positions or women who will be in leading positions. I think because, like the ad that we saw, I think this will inspire younger women also to become part of the industry. I think we need to make a change, or it would be amazing to make a change on the roles we put in the household, especially with the paternity-maternity leave. Another thing that I think is that we need to stop thinking about having token women, but actually having a woman there because she does a great job, and that's just how it is. And in advertising, your portfolio says it, like, that's it. You look at someone's website. And also, to sell it to a client, we can not only talk about the fact that you can have a positive impact in the world, but also it's good business.
Annette, thank you for joining us. As always, you can watch the 51% later today at 4:15 Paris time. It will also be posted on our website, France24.com, shortly afterwards. That's it for this edition. Thank you for watching. Please stay tuned to France 24.
In India, since Narendra Modi came to power, many media outlets have been accused of bias.
Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. #brand Modi.
Propaganda glorifying one man.
सर, आपकी जो छवि है, वो है गरीबों के मसीहा की छवि. हमने देखा महिलाएं कैसे रोने लगती हैं जब आप जाते हैं.
प्राइम मिनिस्टर झूठ बोल रहे हैं, तब भी उसको मीडिया वैसे ही पब्लिश कर रहा है.
For critics, these so-called Godi media are an attack on free press.
The police barricaded the media. In a week, I was put off air.
Can anyone stop the media wars in India? Don't miss Reporters on France 24.
Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, the man who lived 1,000 lives.
Saint-Exupéry, c'est d'abord et avant tout un humaniste qui a cherché toute sa vie à créer du lien entre les hommes.
Pilot, writer, illustrator, he's the author of The Little Prince, translated into nearly 600 languages.
L'œuvre la plus lue, la plus traduite après la Bible et le Coran.
He disappeared 80 years ago during a reconnaissance flight in World War II. His death long remained a mystery.
Ça fait partie de la légende Saint-Exupéry. Avec Saint-Ex, tout est possible.
Saint-Exupéry, c'est quelqu'un qui avait une multipotentialité professionnelle. On appellerait ça aujourd'hui un slasher. Il était écrivain, bien sûr, on le connaît, il était poète, romancier. Il était également illustrateur, puisqu'il a illustré Le Petit Prince. Saint-Exupéry était aussi pilote. Il a ouvert des lignes aériennes. En cela, il était aussi sans doute explorateur.
On peut définir Antoine de Saint-Exupéry comme un écrivain pilote ou un pilote écrivain. Alors c'est très compliqué de savoir lequel l'emporter sur l'autre. Il a démarré comme pilote, voilà. Mais dès l'âge de 12 ans, puisqu'il a appris son baptême de l'air à 12 ans, et ça a été pour lui une révélation.
À côté du château de Saint-Maurice, eh bien, il y avait un aérodrome et s'essayaient sur cet aérodrome les frères Wroblewski-Salvez qui avaient monté un avion de toutes pièces. Donc Saint-Exupéry est allé trouver Gabriel Wroblewski pour lui demander s'il pouvait faire un petit tour.
Qu'est-ce qu'il aimait dans l'avion? Je pense qu'il aimait la liberté.